Welcome to Political Beatdown. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by Michael Cohen. Moments ago, Donald Trump held a disastrous cabinet meeting where he, I guess, talked about a number of topics. It seems that each answer was worse than the next. Donald Trump was asked about the Trump DOJ saying that the Epstein list never existed and that Epstein did not keep a list to blackmail rich men. We know that Pam Bondi, Trump's attorney general, said the list was on her desk. That was her words. And this has been an issue that Trump and others close to him in the administration have been pushing over and over again. The Epstein list, the Epstein list. How many times have you heard Trump and the people? I'm bringing it up because they're the ones who are talking about this and all of their supporters. Trump's going to release it. Well, Donald Trump was asked about it, and here's what went down. Let's play the clip.
Sure. Your memo and release yesterday on Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former Labor Secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the
Yeah, sure.
Could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
I don't think you could have crafted a parody of the response the way Trump answered that. You're still talking about it because you are. We're talking about it because you've been talking.
Because the guy who he was puffing up, the guy who he gave proximity to power to, is the one that's out there every single day posting on X, talking about it and making it into an issue. And what is the issue? The issue is that MAGA and Trump, each of whom claimed that they intended to release the Epstein files. Okay, if you don't want to release them, just say, I'm not going to release them. But if you say that you're going to, and then the guy again, it's like me turning around and saying, my pal Ben is going to release a photo of a Poland Spring bottle of water that he drew the other day. And you say, oh my God, I didn't know Ben could draw, because he can't. And so all of a sudden, right, we turn around and we say, it's the greatest picture you're ever going to see. It looks literally like you could take it out of the wall and drink it. And you're like, wow, I'd really love to see it. All of a sudden, I'm not going to show it to you. I mean, that's the problem. The guy who he gave proximity to power is sitting there and now pushing this envelope day in and day out. If you don't want to release it, which clearly you don't want to, then just say, you know what? It's bullshit. I've had enough of it. I'm not releasing it. Period. End of story. And then just call it for what it is. A broken, campaign promise. Right, Ben?
Exactly. I mean, look, by the way, though, I do draw some very good photos right there. People are wondering, what am I doing during the show? I mean, it is a very tough outline for me to have to follow when we prepare for the show, Cohen. Okay.
Now I know why every time I'm talking to you and you're looking down, now I know what you're doing.
It's right. It's right there. All right. Okay. So next, Donald Trump is asked about that last jobs report. So remember, ADP, private payroll jobs report, private jobs showed a loss of 33,000 jobs on Wednesday, I believe. Then on Thursday, the Trump regime came out with their report, which included government jobs, and it went from negative 33,000. And when you add the government jobs, guess what the number was? It has a 47 in it. 147,000. So a swing of close to 190,000 or 200,000 from the lost jobs to the gained jobs all of a sudden, or 170,000 in the opposite direction. And what the Trump regime's data showed is that manufacturing jobs were lost, right? Their promise was that there would be a manufacturing boom. So why didn't they fudge those numbers? Because those are private jobs, right? The ADP private payroll has the manufacturing jobs, but what numbers can they fudge? The government jobs. So they said there was a massive boom in government jobs and teaching jobs and other government jobs. At the same time, they've been saying that DOGE has been cutting all of these jobs and all this government waste is going away. But the surge in jobs came from the government jobs. So anyway, Trump's asked about it. And a reporter says, okay, we're looking at your own data. You promised the manufacturing boom and the government jobs going down, but your own report says the opposite is happening then. So what is it? How are you losing 7,000 manufacturing jobs? And here Donald Trump says, we're building plants now. 7 have started. 7, he says. Here, play this clip.
Mr. President, in the last jobs report, the manufacturing jobs actually lost 7,000 jobs. When will the investments that you've been talking about have an effect
Well,
on
they're building the plants now. About 7 have started. We're going to have hundreds started within a short period of time.
7
Half
hundreds.
of, Ben, half of
Half of.
14, 2 weeks.
that is, I did not. Good work making that connection here. But he goes and he goes. One thing I wanted to point out too. So I wanted to say, with this disastrous budget bill, right? There's the budget for ICE is now going to be bigger than the Marines, right? And they're going to hire more like ICE soldiers than there are troops in most other countries, right? So one of the things I think you'll see on these future job reports, so you can come back and pull up my prediction here, you'll see manufacturing jobs tanking because Trump's trade war against the world is failing and causing us to lose jobs. But they're going to try to claim job increases by all of these people who they're hiring for ICE. And they're going to say, look, 200,000 jobs were created, 200,000 jobs, and it's going to be the new ICE agents who are going to be terrorizing the streets.
Ben, I do have a question for you.
Well, maybe
I would love to get your take on this.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Ready?
Let's do it.
Drum roll. My question to you is, why not just tell the truth? If there is a loss in jobs, why not just turn around and say this quarter that there is a loss of 30,000 jobs, 50,000 jobs? But you know what? It happens. Job markets, they're cyclical. Every presidency has ups, every presidency has down. Why is it that every single quarter has to be up, especially when you know that it's going to be disproven by the organization that's actually sending out the checks and tracking the data? I mean, how can you go ahead and make a statement that, it's up by 270,000 when in fact it's down by 130,000 or whatever the numbers exactly were? It's just so much easier to tell the truth. Who cares? I mean, when was the last time that you changed your position on something based upon the job report numbers?
Well, and I'll just say this, just as a level of personal accountability. When you make mistakes and you admit to your mistakes and then you figure out ways to fix it, that's what intelligent leadership is supposed to look like and do. When former President Biden, though, would talk about things and said, I could have done better on this, right? There were lots of moments where former President Biden would say, hey, I could have done better on this. I wish I would have done that. Well, that would get twisted as a sign of weakness. And whether it's the corporate news or Biden's adversaries would then say, aha, we've got the soundbite. He's admitting that something went wrong. And more than anybody that Trump's entire life motto is to never give an inch on anything. And the moment somebody else gives Trump an inch, he takes your life. He goes for you the moment you just let him in a little bit. So just any of those law firms or news networks who give in, they just become future targets of him. And most of those cases start around big, gigantic lies. And he uses his big, gigantic lies to try to morph people into his reality than the one that actually exists. And these systemic issues that form from this, though, are deeply problematic because the Ponzi scheme here, whereas maybe a Ponzi scheme with a Bernie Madoff, which is very dangerous, where investors in the Madoff fund are getting ripped off. Why did Madoff always say quarter after quarter, there are massive returns until the money just runs out? What I worry most as I study all of the data is that you have our stock market, which reacts favorably to the Trump Ponzi scheme economy, the kind of pump and dump, but the pump. He gives this news. I did a great deal with China. There's no such deal. I've done a great deal with no such deal. We're going to put the tariffs on. We're withdrawing the tariffs. And the Trumpy people who run Trumpy-like companies, and many of them dominate the stock market, they find ways to make money off of that. But the real people, Main Street, not Wall Street, are suffering. And if you look at the systemic indicators, like the strength of our dollar, the dollar has never opened up weaker than it is right now since 1973. Why? Because the dollar is becoming less and less the world's reserve currency as other countries see the attacks on Chairman Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, who Trump appointed, and see Trump not allowing our economy to be independent and thrive, and they are pulling out. I'll give you an example too. Who has Trump attacked so much over the past 48 hours? What, South Korea and Japan? Just think about his attack on South Korea. First, South Korea has a free trade agreement with the United States. So why are you attacking South Korea? Then you go to Japan. Okay, Trump's attacking Japan. He sent that letter that looks like it was written by a fifth grader yesterday. What a strange letter. Japan has the largest investment into the United States from any foreign country. They invest more in U.S. businesses than any foreign country. Japan is the biggest employer of any foreign country of Americans. I mean, like close to 1 million Americans work for Japanese companies. And Japan holds the most treasury bonds of any nation by far, like 400 billion more than the next highest bondholder. So Japan plays a major role in the American economy. And then Trump says, well, the main problem that we have with Japan, why we can't do a deal, they've got to remove their tariffs on American vehicles. And Japan says, we don't have tariffs on American vehicles, so we can't remove something that doesn't exist. To which Donald Trump responds, yes, you do. You do have tariffs. It's called a deficit. And because America has a trade deficit with you, that's a tariff. And Japan is like, that's not a tariff at all. And what are you talking about here? How do we make a deal with you if that's your perception of a reality, which is
the question, Ben, becomes who's feeding him this wrong information that's making not just him look foolish, but making our country look foolish? I mean, I don't even know a good enough sort of metaphor to put into this. You have a scenario here which Ben perfectly described. It does not exist. And if it doesn't exist, imagine the president of Japan explaining to Trump it is not a trade deficit. But Trump won't listen to it because he knows only this one way that, again, is being fed to him by people like Lutnick or Bessent or Stephen Miller and so on. And he cannot get this trade deficit thing out of his head. Ben, I don't know what ultimately happens. How do you end up arguing with somebody over something that doesn't exist?
Well, and it's why you can't make a deal with him and why he just sent these letters to all of the countries, because they fundamentally don't even understand what his negotiating positions are, because they're not grounded in reality. And at what point, though, on every issue, Cohen, where Trump's being fed this, that, and the other thing from these advisors, though, do we say, and I think we should say it right at the outset, that the buck stops at the top? You can say whatever you want to say about Biden, but Biden surrounded himself with some of the top, smartest advisors who gave him accurate information about the state of play. It was a predictable world. There was not chaos happening every day, despite cable news and MAGA influencers trying to create the chaos with all of the fake lies that they were trying to act like was the reality. And again, when that wasn't the reality actually taking place. And, you know, the one thing when you go back about a Biden, he was an older guy. He spoke slow and he stuttered. You read a Biden transcript and you read a Trump transcript. You put them side by side. Biden is speaking incredibly coherently, deep thought, nuance, understanding countries. And Donald Trump, and it's all lies after lies. And fundamentally, it is a failure of our country to understand what leadership actually looks like. And it is a broader framework of the direction I think the country's just been pushed in over time, and this reality TV frenzied culture that literally a crazy man, that's viewed as somehow strength, and the quiet, subtle elder statesman is viewed as weakness. It is a warped concept that didn't exist at other times in our history.
Yeah. You know, I
and
need
for
to
me,
make a correction for myself when I stated the president, Ishiba. It's not. It's Prime Minister of Japan. You know, I was just using the term president because we were talking about former President Joe Biden and obviously President Trump. But you're right. It is Prime Minister.
And look, he's from the Liberal Democratic Party in Japan. They have elections in their upper house chamber on July 20th. And right now, the Japanese people who used to see lots of links with the United States view China more favorably than the United States. What we're seeing happening in Asia, meetings between China, South Korea, and Japan, whereas former President Biden brought Japan, South Korea, and the United States together. You're also seeing similar sentiments in Australia. Shout out to all the Midas Down Under and the Midas mates there in Australia. We're seeing this across the world right now as truly a new world order with a very weak and isolated United States is being formed. And Donald Trump is out there frankly looking like a lunatic to everybody other than state regime media in the United States and cable news that likes to both sides us. Here, I live in California. No secret about that. I live in Los Angeles. No secret about that. So the way Donald Trump speaks about California and LA is the way North Korea speaks about South Korea, and the types of propaganda that Kim Jong-un says they don't have lights in South Korea. Everybody's being tortured. You know, they have an oppressive regime in South Korea. Look, there are issues and problems with South Korea. I'd much rather live in South Korea than North Korea by far. And when you think about it, California, if it was a country, would be the fourth largest GDP in the world with over $4 trillion in GDP. So California basically subsidizes most red states. The red states would be failed states, would be bankrupt if it wasn't for California. Yet Trump and a lot of these red states group up to attack California, not give California the resources. One of the ways I think about it is California giving money to the federal government is maybe like you giving money to an insurance company, right? And to some extent. But imagine the insurance company not only not paying you out, but the insurance adjuster showing up to your front door and shooting you. That is the relationship now between California and our federal government. We are paying into it, and then they're coming in and they're shooting you. They're sending ICE agents to destroy our economy here in Los Angeles and throughout California. They're not providing necessary funds. They're removing National Guard troops while we have wildfires right now. And those National Guard, remember how Donald Trump's like, you need to rake the forest. We do. We absolutely do. And a lot of those forest areas are federal lands as well. Trump is moving our National Guard to be used as pawns in MacArthur Park in Los Angeles and to stand in front of federal buildings like bodyguards doing nothing when they need to go to work and actually do the things that Californians need. So
which
here's
is great because they're on the payroll and everything. But, since we're also talking about all the nonsense that's going on, Ben, you and I talked about this, I don't know, a month ago, 5 weeks ago, give or take. Remember when we turned around and we said the scariest thing is going to happen with all of these ICE agents wearing masks and basically doing these disappearances on people, rounding them up, throwing bags over their head, tossing them into the back of these trucks, these sprinters and so on, that we're too heavily armed as a nation for this shit to just keep going on. Something bad's going to ultimately happen. Well, it did. And the worst part about it, yes, Texas is dealing with the tragedy of the flood, the children and the elderly and just all of the Texans. Makes no difference, Republican, Democrat, Independent. But at the same point in time in Texas, we also had a scenario where there was a shooter who went after ICE agents. They, of course, killed the shooter, but several agents were also injured. This is just the beginning. This is a prediction that Ben and I made a long time ago because it is so over the top in terms of what's doing. And Ben, when you describe what's going on there in California, if it doesn't send chills down the spine of every single one of you, I'm not really sure what will. I mean, imagine the fear of these individuals who go to the store to buy bread and milk for the family or they go to this area so that they can get picked up for a day job. And the next thing you know, ICE is swarming all over. I don't know. I don't recall California being this type of a police state. I certainly know that Gavin Newsom is against it. But now the big threat is if Newsom does anything to impede ICE, they're going to arrest him too. I mean, this is dystopia as far as I'm concerned.
And then I'll show you, here's what Donald Trump said about California. And this is what I said. It's like North Korea talking about South Korea. He's like, in California, they have blackouts and brownouts every week and people aren't able to live there. And that's just not true. We're happy in California. We were happier until the ICE agents and the National Guard were weaponized against our own people here living peacefully. But we're doing good in California. There could always be improvements, of course, not blackouts and brownouts. But this is that fascist North Korea language about South Korea. Here, play this clip.
And they're going to have, I think, Doug, a lot of electricity left over. And that electricity is going to be passed into the grid and give us no more, like you look at California. They have blackouts and brownouts every week. They're totally out of control. They have a really incompetent governor.
Yeah, and that's, again, just false. And he weaponizes that to attack California over and over again.
So how come, Ben, nobody went ahead and nobody challenged on a fact-checking basis? When he's sitting there, and if you play the clip again, you'll notice he's talking to the media. So, Ben, if you were there as the founder of Midas Touch Network, where truth is important, where this network is important, and he would make a statement like that, Mr. President, follow-up question. When was the last blackout or brownout that you're referring to in California? By coincidence, I happen to be a California resident. And in fact, Ben, when was the last brownout or blackout that you've had? And by the way, what grid are you referring to in terms of having extra energy, considering Nobody in California is complaining that there is no electricity. I will tell you, by the way, an area that doesn't have enough electricity for itself is the state of New York. How do you know that? Oh, yeah, because we buy a bunch of our electricity from Canada. I mean, that's the whole point. He's talking to the press. Am I wrong to say, Ben, that it is incumbent upon them to be knowledgeable in areas like this so that they can throw back a follow-up question in order to get clarity and that we can get legitimate responses coming out of our elected officials?
Well, that's why, though, I think there's an opportunity, what we do here. One of the reasons why I show the Trump press conferences or the Trump cabinet meetings is because I then tried to do the job that the media didn't do. And because we're getting more views than them, people can get the fact check. I can show them the data. We can talk about it. And I tried to do it in a way that is bipartisan. I don't think any of the things that I'm talking about, should be viewed as liberal or conservative or independent or whatever. I mean, we're just giving you the data, Cohen, to your point.
And you know what I feel like doing? Do you know what I feel like doing? Honestly, I feel like putting on a suit and a tie, going to DC, demanding entrance to the White House, taking over and sitting in the Oval Office and declaring the fact that I actually won the presidency, that I am the president of the United States, right? And I won it with convincing numbers. And what's the matter? Nobody's going to turn around and say, you weren't even on the ballot, right? I mean, isn't it as much a line of bullshit as me going ahead and doing that? Just say, listen, I don't know what you're talking about, but as far as I'm going, I'll get you with Midas Touch Network to turn around and to say, Michael Cohen won the election. There you go. He's president of the United States. Does that make me president? I just don't understand why the press, and I don't want to hear from people that, they don't want to get thrown out of the press pool, that, they will get banned from the Oval Office or from the briefing room or, of course, Air Force One. And so I'd rather not be there than have to be subjected to a series of lies that I need to go and report back to our viewers, where it's predicated in complete and total nonsense. It's so much easier just to tell the fucking truth. We have a right to know the truth. That's what we expect. That's the one thing we expect from our elected officials. All right? Just the truth. It's simple.
And look, the corporate news, there was I think it was a press conference last week where Donald Trump was rambling, and it was so telling because Donald Trump was like, should I wrap this up or should I keep on going? And then all the press in concert were like, keep on going, keep on going, keep on going. And they all scream, we want more, we want more, we want more. And to me, it was just one of the most telling moments because he was there lying the entire time. And what they hated about Biden is that Biden didn't give them the access all of the time. Biden was there doing the job. Biden was not as entertaining to them as Donald Trump was. And so they view this entertainment, which is, fascism, as great for their viewers and great for their readers. And so one of the reasons they don't do it is they enjoy it. They like it. And they think that's good for their ratings, while Donald Trump is coming after them and attacking them and trying to, get rid of a free press. It's why I never show anything Trump does live, because I know he's going to lie. And so I have to show it. I always give it the full context, and then I fact check it either before or right after, so people know what it is that he's saying, why it's a lie, and you can judge for yourself. So one of the things I want to talk about is I want to talk about Texas. And I think one of the most important things, to recognize in Texas, no matter what, is that the response was bad. I think in terms of who's to blame for the bad response, I understand that could require an investigation, but I'll lay out the facts in a little bit about the National Weather Service having critical vacancies across the country, but specifically in Texas. The meteorologist coordinator, the person whose job is to coordinate with state and local officials, was pushed out by DOGE, the key position, right? So just because the National Weather Service issued a bulletin at 1 a.m. saying that there could be flash floods, and then 2 hours later saying go to elevated areas, that's not, we all get messages all the day, right? There's more than just sending out an alert. There's the alert and then coordinating with local officials to make sure a response is done. And this would be times where Biden would get involved personally, have a war room, have the situation room, and get involved. I think we need to talk about the cuts to FEMA and how Trump wants FEMA to be eliminated. Even right now, he doesn't rule out eliminating FEMA. He's like, we'll talk about it later. And then you talk about what the locals are saying. The locals point their finger at the feds. They could have had in Kerr County an alarm system that would alert people, but they wouldn't want government to be involved because the Republicans tell them you should hate government. So I think there's systemic failure all around. But what Trump says at the cabinet meeting, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, he goes, great job. I think everybody did terrific. He goes, congratulations, everybody. You've done great. And it's like what he did with COVID, like a miracle, it's all going to go away. Remember when he was asked what marks he would give himself during COVID? An A 10 out of 10. So I want to discuss that and more, but I want to stick to the facts because here at the Midas Touch Network, that's what we do. That's what we have. I want to remind everybody, subscribe to Michael Cohen's YouTube channel at The Michael Cohen Show. Subscribe to his Substack, The Michael Cohen Substack. Subscribe to his audio podcast, Mea Culpa. And if many of you are seeing, I've been able to sit in this chair the entire episode after having that herniated disc. So I'm actually feeling much better. Cohen gave me some great recommendations as well. So I actually feel by next week, I'll be able to do a Patreon. I'll be able to sit. The issue is I can't sit for long periods of time. So after we finish, I try to stretch it out, and I can't stretch if I'm doing the show right after. So next week we'll do patreon.com/political beatdown. Quick break. We'll be back. A lot more to discuss.
Look, after everything that I've been through, I know a thing or two about needing a reset, whether it's in life, in politics, or in your health. Sometimes you just have to start fresh. And when I need that kind of reset, Prolon's 5-day fasting mimicking diet, it's my go-to. I've done it. I felt the difference. And you know what? It works. And look, summer's here. And sure, we all say that we're going to eat better. We're going to lose weight. We're going to hit the gym. But without a solid plan, all of that ends up in the land of broken promises. Prolon, it gives you structure backed by a serious science to help you get results that stick. So here's how. It's a plant-based, pre-packaged nutrition program. Soups, snacks, drinks, everything that you need for 5 days. It tricks your body into thinking it's fasting while it's actually being nourished. And the result? Fat loss, metabolic reset, cellular rejuvenation, and more energy without starving yourself. And the new Prolon Next Gen? It takes things to a whole new level. 100% organic soups and teas, better taste, ready-to-eat meals, and the same Nobel-winning science powering it all. So no matter the season, when I'm craving a real reset, Prolon is the only nutrition program that works for me. It's effective, convenient, and honestly, it's one of the smartest things I do for myself. And now, Political Beatdown listeners, brigaders, you're going to get exclusive access to a deal that you won't find anywhere else. So for a limited time, Prolon is offering 15% off site-wide, plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day nutrition program. So head right now to prolonlife.com/beat. That's prolonlife, prolonlife.com/beat to claim your 15% discount and your bonus gift. Again, that's prolonlife.com/beat. Give your body the reset it deserves and do it the right way. I love going out with friends, unwinding at the end of a long day, but I don't always want to wake up feeling like I got hit by a truck. So lately, I've been reaching for something better. Soul's out of office gummies. I mean, these things are a game changer. You get the light social buzz with no hangover, no empty calories, no guilt. I took the perfect buzz strength, and I got to say, it mellowed me out. It lifted my mood, and it gave me a little creative kick without turning my brain to mush. I still felt like me, just a little lighter, a little looser, and more present. And let me tell you, Soul is all about wellness without the weirdness. Everything is made from organically farmed, USA grown hemp. It's vegan, gluten-free, and it's low in sugar. Their out-of-office line, it even comes in 4 strengths, so you can dial it up or down depending on the vibe you want. And now they've got a new out-of-office beverage. It's an alcohol-free summer sipper that's refreshing and still gives you that mellow lift. So why not skip the booze and the hangovers and treat yourself to something smarter? And right now, Soul is offering my audience 30% off your entire order. So go to getsoul.com and use code BEAT. That's getsoul.com, GETSOUL.com, promo code BEAT for 30% off. Bring on the good vibes. You know what? You've earned them.
Welcome back to
Ben,
Political Beatdown.
By the way, Ben, you've earned it.
Thank you. Great ad reads by Michael Cohen right there. The discount codes for those sponsors are in the description below. My brother Jordy spends a long time negotiating those discount codes, so check them out. Here's the clip of Trump that I wanted to show everybody, where I said, look, objectively, it's been a terrible response by Texas and the feds. We need data. Like, we know that there were critical vacancies at the National Weather Service, at NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, and FEMA, which would play critical roles in this in all aspects of the coordination. And I think as you present a timeline of July 4th, right, an initial alert goes out at 1 that there are flash floods. I'm not sure to the severity of what ultimately took place. By about 3:45, it says go to higher grounds, hurry up to higher grounds. And then evacuations don't really start for several hours after. So what I'm really focused on as a lawyer, as someone who cares about the facts, is what went on between that kind of 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. period. And then going back on Thursday, as we saw that there was going to be bad weather happening, what efforts were happening? Were there pre-positioned FEMA people? You know, what level of coordination was taking place between the feds, the state, and the local? There's deeper systemic issues about why Kirk County didn't have emergency alarm systems, deeper systemic issues of why were you having these camps right next to the Guadalupe River, where people know that's a very dangerous river that actually has a history of flooding and causing deaths. You go back to the 80s and you'll see that that river has a track record of having, you know, horrific situations happen. So there's systemic issues, there's short-term issues. We need to investigate and get to the bottom of it. But this is not a high five moment, right? But when Donald Trump was talking about it during the cabinet meeting press conference, he said his message is congratulations, everyone, great work. And it's a lot like he said during COVID. There could have been tens of millions of deaths. The fact that there was only 1 million deaths, I should get credit for it. But also with COVID, he says it was a hoax. It's both a hoax and not a big deal, but he should get credit for it. He started the vaccine, but he hates the vaccine. It's just a bunch of word salad, but dangerous word salad that leads to no clarity. So here we go. Here's what Donald Trump said at the press conference. Let's play it.
Response has been incredible, and the fact that we got along so well, I don't know. I don't even think that's a political thing, but we got along so well, and it was so unified. I think a lot of lives have been saved. That could have been as bad as it was, and you could have lost double or triple. This thing was just really horrible. Well, congratulations on a great job, and appreciate it. I know you're going down. I'll be going down on Friday with.
Yeah. So he says, great work, great job. I'm going down Friday. We saved lives. Congratulations. I can only imagine, and I hate playing this game, but former President Biden during this said, great job, great work, while over 100 people have died. That's a huge death event with over 100 people dying. people still missing.
I'm not even thinking about Joe Biden, to be honest, and what they would say if he made that comment. I'm thinking more about the families that are grieving right now. All right. The last thing that I want is to hear my president turning around and congratulating those people in the NOAA or National Weather Service that did not get the warnings out that cost me the grief that I'm going to live with for the rest of my life, because I lost a child, I lost a sibling, I lost a spouse or whomever. I don't even know how I would respond, to be honest with you. I was so taken back at the callousness of it. And I don't understand why. It wasn't even a comment that was necessary. That's the whole point. You know, when you have these off the cuff sort of comments that keep coming and so on. And I get what he was trying to say. He was trying to say we did a good job. It was, again, patting them all on the back. He wanted to pat his cabinet on the back for, I don't know, for breathing. But at the end of the day, you don't thank it. First of all, too soon. It's just too soon. You didn't do a good job. And instead, what he should have said is, he said, this is an occurrence that never should have happened or should have been limited in scope. There are serious mistakes that were made. I'd fucking blame it on Elon and Doge for cutting the NOAA or NWS. I blame it on Doge and say it was a mistake. And immediately what we intend to do is to revamp the entire warning system to ensure that this never happens again. And we're going to do it in honor of the lives that were lost, the tragic loss of life as a result of Mother Nature. That's what I would have said. You come off, it's human, it's real, and it's truthful, and it's honest. And instead, it's like, hey, congratulations, you did a great job. Great job. I'm going to go down on Friday. Maybe I'll throw some paper towels to people to help clean up the dirt in their kitchen. I don't know yet. But whatever it is, you did a great job. No, the grief is too fresh and it's too painful.
And you see where, and they go right away to, we did a great job. And then they go right away into religion, right? Which is pray, National Day of Prayer. This is, an act of God, but like, we need to just, reflect on how blessed we are, that there was not a bigger casualty. Let us all pray together. And look, I'm fine. If you want to pray, you could pray, but this is their playbook. Right now it's just prayer. It's really, it's unfathomable. I can't wrap my head around it. You should wrap your head around it. This is what the government's job is, to wrap your head around it. I'll just give an example. Imagine you have something traumatic happens to you. You go into a hospital and there's supposed to be a top surgeon who's there, who's always been there, who knows how to save this kind of, catastrophe that's happening to you. But that surgeon's been forced out. Instead of dealing with the top veteran surgeon, you're now dealing with an intern or someone who's trained to do it, but doesn't really know how to do it, doesn't have all of those years of experience. And then an event happens, and then they go, nothing we could have done about it at all. We couldn't have done anything. The 6 vacancies that they had in Texas were critical roles, including the meteorologist coordinator, like the person who's supposed to coordinate with the state and local officials. The veteran person was pushed out. And then there were other critical vacancies in Texas as well, of people who were pushed out. And so ultimately, if you don't have those people, and the Trump regime's like, well, this happened late at night, 1 a.m., 3 a.m., 5 a.m. What could we have done? They'll say, look, the National Weather Service did issue a warning at 1 a.m. They did. I've seen it. They've issued a warning at 1 a.m. Then later at 3:30 or 3:45, it says go to higher ground, but the evacuations don't start until really 2 or 3 hours after that. Now, the mayor, who's the judge, and other local officials say they didn't get the alert, whether they were sleeping or didn't get it or however. The point is, it's supposed to be more than just pressing a button at the National Weather Service and the feds. I get, how many alerts do you get? How many emails do you get? How many messages do you get? Especially if I'm getting an alert at 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. That's not what I remember when the fires were here in LA. I was sleeping through the alerts, which happened early when I had to evacuate. And fortunately, I had family members and other people who were nearby who were calling me over and over again, and they were able to kind of communicate and tell, but I was getting the alerts very loudly. What the federal government is supposed to do in situations like this is they're supposed to be involved more than just one alert. They're supposed to, especially if you're in areas, 1 a.m., 3 a.m., remote areas like camps, you're supposed to have a plan and come up with a way to handle these evacuations in the right way. And we got rid of the key people there. Kristi Noem, who works at who's the Secretary of Homeland Security, she said, I can't wrap my head around any of this. This is just too much for me to wrap my head around. Here, play this clip.
I still can't get over the 45 minutes. I mean, from alert, 45 minutes to respond to the high level of water. I mean, I had one of your swimmers on. We had on Fox and Friends for the Coast Guard, and he said that he didn't even feel safe getting in that water. So how can we expect, kids to respond in 45 minutes?
Yeah, I can't get over it either, Lawrence. I mean, I really can't wrap my head around it. The alerts went out several hours in advance, but the rise in the level of water and how quickly that happened just really was unprecedented for this area, how quickly it happened in that alert and what those individuals had to do to get to safety and what those counselors and camp directors tried to do to get those girls to safety was absolutely unbelievable. Hugging those parents on Saturday as they were looking for their children. I talked to one father who found one of the best friends of his daughter while he was still looking for his daughter, hugged one of the grandpas who was looking for his granddaughter. Yesterday, Franklin Graham and I had a call and a prayer and shared some scriptures with families at a church that were still waiting to find their loved ones, and spent some time visiting with them and talking to them about this difficult situation. It really is unbelievable, the tragedy that we are seeing. And my hope and prayer is that we can find by these people with their family members as soon as possible.
We join you, Secretary, in those prayers.
Seriously?
Prayers.
Fuck you, Kristi Noem. Okay? 2-finger salute to Kristi Noem. Let me say this, all right? Fuck you in your thoughts and your prayers. That's the way that I see it. At this point in time, this was a tragic mistake. Doge with their bullshit, fraud, waste, abuse, cutting National Weather Service, NOAA, and other government agencies that are designed to protect us, the American people. All right? That's their job, to protect us. And what does their entire budget is equal to something like 0.1% of our national budget. Think about what we're talking about here. Now, I'm not saying that every person would have been saved. I don't know that. All right. I don't have, sadly, a crystal ball where I could predict that type of an answer. But even if one person was saved, simply because the National Weather Service had the ability within which to sound the alarm, and all of a sudden, everybody would have known maybe these children could have gotten to higher ground. Maybe. I don't know. But now the parents, families, friends, the country has to live with this in our minds as to what could have been done to prevent this tragedy. What could have been done? Well, how about putting back the system in place? How about spending a couple of dollars and upgrade the national warning system? How about something like that, so that in areas like here in Texas, Ruby Red, Texas, that they go ahead in an area, this Guadalupe River, which, as Ben stated correctly before, has a frequency issue of overflowing. All right. And yes, it was one of these once in 100-year type floods. I get it. We lived through it here in New York with, Katrina. I get it. I remember. I really do. I truly remember. But at some point in time, you must realize and own a responsibility that there is loss of life, and to protect in their honor, in the honor of those who've lost their life. Let's just put the money back. Let's hire people, scientists, professionals, not big balls and a bunch of, 21-year-old techno bros who think that they could figure out an algorithm in order to do this. Fuck that. It's not true. It doesn't happen. I've just had enough of the bullshit, because at the end of the day, who is it that suffers? It's us, the American people. And I'm done. I'm done with that. It's why I constantly say to people always, do you subscribe to Midas Touch Network? Are you one of the 5 million people? Because with all due respect, 5 million is an enormous number. 5 million ain't going to do it. 10 million's not going to do it. The Democratic Party has a problem in terms of its headquarters. And you know what? Midas Touch is at the top of that sort of headquarter, but not when you're talking about, groups of individuals like the Republican Party that operate like a pyramid, where at the very, very top is Donald Trump, who passes out information. We don't have that in the party, and that's what we're trying to do. And with your help, we'll get there. And the faster we do, the faster we make sure that shit like this never happens again.
Well said. I want to give everybody a shout out for joining us today. Thank you, everybody. Good two-finger salute right there. Keep checking back every 90 minutes or so on the Midas Touch YouTube feed, where we have new video content that's constantly being uploaded. I know. One more video I wanted to show our brigaders as well, just so they can see the BS. Donald Trump claiming he's done the trade deals because he sent letters to countries. I promised at the outset I would show you this. Trump's done basically no deals at all. What he did with the UK and Vietnam was not a deal. It was like a framework or a social media post. We never made a deal with China. That didn't happen at all. It was a consensus where America caved. There's no such deal. There's no paperwork behind the deal. But here's Donald Trump bragging that he did 90 deals in 90 days. He goes, I'm done. I did it, because he sent letters that looked like they were drafted by a fifth grader who, no offense to fifth graders, who for the first time was told to write a letter to a foreign country and do it in a way that embarrasses the country. Here, play this clip.
Mr. President, on tariffs, what happened to 90 trade deals in 90 days?
We've spoken to everybody. We know everything. It's all done.
Well, state
I told you, we'll make some deals, but for the most part, we're going to send a letter. We're going to say, welcome to the United States. If you'd like to participate in the greatest, most successful country ever. I mean, we're doing better than ever. We have, I don't think, and you're going to see these numbers soon. We've never had numbers like this. We've never had investment like this. We have more than 90. We're going to have much more than 90, but most of those are going to be sent a letter. This is exactly what I said.
I'll leave us there, because at the end of the day, we're dealing with a psychopath. We're dealing with a sociopath. I don't mean to make light of mental illness, so I'm not trying to be. We're literally dealing with a crazy individual. There's nothing logical about what he's saying. There's nothing truthful about what he's saying. He spews that every day. And look, our media that resembles more and more like North Korean propaganda here in the United States, the fact that they don't look at that and literally say what I'm saying, that's absolutely psychotic. That's absolutely crazy. We can't you have to say that when you look at that, because I'm like, what the hell is that? We've done the deals. No, we have. You haven't done any deals. And the letters that you're sending out have they're typos. You're calling female leaders Mr. You're saying, we welcome you to join the greatest economy in the history of mankind. What are you even talking about? And I'll tell you, from the perspective of other countries, they see that the way we see North Korea. So just think, the way we look at North Korea and Kim Jong-un is the way the rest of the world views the United States and Donald Trump right now. That's what they think about us. Perhaps worse, because Kim Jong-un's been a little bit off the radar lately. And we, the people who care about logic and facts, it's why Cohen talks about building this community. It's more important than ever, because we can't be worn out and succumb to that craziness. We have to rise above it and call it out what it is. All right, subscribe to Michael Cohen's YouTube channel at The Michael Cohen Show. Just search on YouTube at The Michael Cohen Show. We got to get Cohen 1 million subscribers. Subscribe to Michael Cohen's Substack on Substack. Search Michael Cohen's name.
In fact, in
Search-
5 minutes, I'm going on with David Packman.
I love it.
In case you happen to be around and you feel like joining us, always love to have you. We had a great one yesterday.
We had a great one. I got Harry Littman after we're doing a YouTube video together.
So Harry, next week, I'm giving him the 2-finger salute.
So I'll absolutely tell that to Harry Littman. Subscribe to the Mea Culpa audio podcast right now, and subscribe to our Patreon. Next week, health permitted, and I feel you saw me sit. You didn't really see me grimacing like I had in the past ones.
Maybe Tuesday.
Maybe to patreon.com/political beatdown.
We have a lot to talk about.
Let's do it. And we'll go from there. Thanks, everybody, so much. We appreciate subscribe to the Midas Touch Substack as well.
Yes.
Thank you, Beatdown Brigaders. We appreciate you. And thank you, Midas Mighty. We'll see you next time.
Boom.